way. Today's the day. So.
Okay. All right. Well, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
You have not seen much of me on the boards, but I have been reading every day. I take the digest, and I even get up there. But your answers are so blasted thorough. So what I am doing is I haven't recorded it yet, but I've taken not only what you've posted, well, no, not only. I've taken what you've posted and both as your responses, your initial responses, and then how you've responded to questions and putting those into, it'll be a video, but I'm going to include all of them so you can learn from one another, but walk through where I think you are as churches and why and what to consider and what will what I think will move you ahead. And that's, that's based on your responses. But I think I know y'all have been very honest about the pieces. And so I hope there are things that you can share with your congregations in some way. Anna, I wrote this to you last night in that email response I gave, or I sent you. Yeah, you're spot on about where the Catholic Church is. They're an incredible model for missioning church. I would add, though, that they do have teaching, and that there are those who go and look at, like church nerds like me.
They're probably hired by the diocese, they're hired higher up. Like, I would have nothing to do with who they hired at all as a lay person at my parish. I may see the person maybe, but we would have nothing to do with why they were chosen or anything like that, right?
Yeah, right, exactly. And you're going to find that in mega churches. One of my, I may have said this, one of my favorite models for dealing with conflict, it was about pastoral transition, and where this woman that I did the funeral for her husband, and she spent 6 months in Arizona. He hated Arizona, but she hated Yates Center, Kansas. So they spent 6 months apart, but in between every 3 months, then he'd spend 3 months with her and go back apart. Then she'd go 3 months in Kansas and then back apart. And it was while he was in Arizona that he died. And so while she was there, she went to a huge, it was an ELCA church, which at that time was very much a missioning church. And we knew of it, Bill and I knew of it because we'd gone there for training. And so anyways, she told me about they let go of their spiritual life pastor who was working with their prayer ministries and everything. And there was upset about that. But the bottom line was it was time for Pastor so-and-so to go. And she knew more of the inside reasons, I think, because Pastor so-and-so wasn't exactly appropriate in how he handled his leaving, which might have been part of why he left. But that just wasn't out and broadcasted into the congregation. I really wish, having that kind of power as a denominational person, or like in the Catholic, so in an Episcopal kind of structure, there are so many times I've thought, wow, I would love that. And I know a lot of regional ministers who've said that, but then they say, but I don't want the responsibility. And it's like, yeah, it is a lot of responsibility, and they're aware, well, it might get in the way of our income. Well, oh, well, too bad. It hasn't helped. Look at your income now as you get ready to let go of another region, but who's counting?
Can you guys hear me coughing? I can mute my thing.
You're okay.
I'm just,
Are you okay?
I told you from the fire, I think now I'm getting sick from the heat and the smoke and the fire nearby and everything. And now it's turned into, I think, sickness.
Oh.
Yeah. And
Oh, and it was 113 degrees here too as well.
Ugh.
I know you guys might have had 100, but 113 was pretty hot here.
Yeah, but what's the humidity like?
It doesn't matter. We had fires burning, so the air was just disgusting.
Dry.
Yeah, dry, but with smoke in the air, it's always, no matter where you live, smoke in the air will aggravate your lungs.
Oh, yeah.
yeah. When we lived in Seattle and there were some of the bad fires up in the mountains, we had to deal with the smoke stuff. My daughter in Tacoma, just south of Seattle, has to deal with it really, really hard. Well, I need to step over there and grab my paper off of my my printer, or did I? Yes, I found.
I'm curious, Dr. Chris, have you ever done any, I guess you'd call it consulting, for the Catholic Church or the Episcopal Church or Methodist or a denomination that has a hierarchy that's at least somewhat similar to the Catholic Church?
Yeah, I have. Catholics, as far as I know, I don't know of them ever calling anybody in from the outside. I don't mean any of this to sound haughty, but we run with big dogs, so like we work or have worked with like top names in the consultant field, consulting field. Bill Easum, who founded the Effective Church Group, Bill was one of the three fathers, if you will, of the church growth movement back in the 80s and 80s, early 80s. That would have been him and Lau Schaller and this is word I always, Herb Miller was.
What are you showing us?
Yeah, there it is. That's one of Bill, that's my Bill and Bill E's book, Effective Staffing for Vital Churches.
That's a beautiful book. That's who she's talking about.
Yeah, he's amazing, absolutely amazing. He's 81, and I miss him so much. I talked to him a few weeks ago, and he, I don't know, I just love this man. And we've been to his house, and I got to spend 2 weeks with him a couple years ago. And I told my husband, I need an ocean fix. And he said, just call Bill. And I'm the only person he's ever let stay at his house. So I feel very honored. And you just go and you soak it up. Okay. Well, I have a couple things I want to share, like do some teaching this morning, if that's okay with y'all. And it really does come out of what I saw in your in posts and somewhere where it took me. So I want to say that ministers aren't sitting ministers, they're seated ministers. So the different tenses. I didn't know if you were playing or not, but it would make sense that we have a seated minister, so we'd call them a sitting minister, but they're technically called seated ministers. And Anna, that's in a system like ours. Baptists are like this, where the congregation calls their minister. They're not appointed, and we call them seated ministers because they've been kind of like seated in the pulpit, would be the historical part about that. They're also called ministers. We're waiting for our called ministers, but as congregations are, more and more congregations call their interims. And so seated pastor just seems to be the more relevant one right now.
And now they've changed the language on that. They're intentional ministers instead of interim ministers.
Yes, intentional interims, which is code language for they've gone through the intentional interim training. And my bias about that is what we teach intentional interims to do, and that it's not always or usually helpful for churches. And I'll tell you that why right now in what my piece here. There are 3 key ways to develop vision in a congregation. There's the Moses visioning model, which is where, Moses went up on the mountain and all God speaks to him. He didn't have to just go up on the mountain. He goes out to that tent of meeting, right? And he meets when they're all wandering, and he speaks to Moses, and then he goes back and says, hey, this is what we're doing. So Moses has that one-on-one connection with God, and God gives him the vision for, God's vision for his people. This is what I want you to do. And so Darren, what you said about waiting for the minister to come, Tanya said we're waiting or no, maybe it was you to bring the vision, although I think it was
That was,
what, right?
That's good paraphrase of what I was saying. Yeah.
You're waiting for him to bring the vision. The problem with that is that many ministers come in with the vision of what they think that church or all churches should be about. And the reality is they really don't know the ins and outs of that congregation. Right. And so they, have trouble getting it into place. Or if people are so desperate, they want it, the congregation may not be ready for that, and they're not ready to deal with that. So it's like they come in, they're one focused without taking in a lot of the factors and variables. Okay.
I agree.
That's the Moses method of visioning. Then there's, go ahead.
No, what I meant by that, I put things, but I'm not saying that he's going to come in and hit the ground running. I meant like a year from now. I mean, a year from when he comes in, that once he gets to know the people, he has an understanding of where they are. Because right now, because we have since October of last year, we've had nothing but supply ministers, that doesn't give you any kind of, you don't have any consistency. Right.
You're just treading water right now.
Yeah, really.
Right.
Can I ask a quick question about supply ministers? If a congregation likes them, or if yours does, Darren, can they be kept, or is it very strict that supply ministers are just to bounce around? Or
yes. Yep, it happens all the time.
Oh, it's so like, you could really like one and they would stay then.
Oh, you have it with interim ministers that they're going to be there for 2 years, and 10 years later they're still there.
But
it does. I'm just saying.
Right, it does.
Yeah.
And sometimes it works out, but if an interim minister goes to do, there are a couple of reasons. One, if they go to do the work of an interim that interim ministers need to do, and they're good at that, then they're not the minister who should be there.
Right.
So because we have different gifts and churches have different needs. And so churches, here we go back to that, churches should call who they need, not who they want, right? And hopefully they want what they need, but usually churches, call the person who will give them who's their best guest of who will give them what they want. So there's that fallacy. Another one is that a lot of interims can't cut it in congregational ministry. I won't say half of them, but a lot of them can't cut it in congregational ministry, and they bring their own stuff, and they can gear the process to where it's like they're making a call for themselves is the other part of that. So they get misfocused on that. I guess those are two key reasons why. So that's why it's discouraged. But it can
the third reason you find is sometimes, and I'm speaking just because this is my dad. My dad was a lay minister. He became a lay minister back in the 60s, and he would stop doing it, and he kept getting called back. But like the last one he was at before he passed away was, they only could afford $800 a month for a minister. And my dad was on Social Security. He could afford to take just $800 a month.
Right.
And so for them, that's all they could afford. Right. And so it was an affordability thing too.
Sure, exactly.
Yeah.
Churches that are that size, they operate under a whole different kind of construct, right? Yeah. And I'll tell you, the third visioning one I'm going to toss to you really fits the smaller congregations. But so let me do the second one. The second one is the congregational discernment model. And this is the one I wish all churches would do in their interim period. It definitely can be done, and it is done and has been done with seated ministers, even ministers who've been in the congregation for a long time. I wrote a model, and the model, of course, that I recommend and I teach, which goes through congregations identifying their values, claiming their mission, or reclaiming, discovering their mission, doing their vision. And it's all done in very fun ways and incremental ways that include the congregation. So you have a small group that's focused and working together on that. But then you're bringing it back to the congregation to get input in ways that are healthy, not ways that are going to are like, no, I don't like that. But you're doing it, and because again of the people you have on your committees in the back and the forth of all of this, it builds a cohesiveness, and it will pass right through. And then it ends with doing your planning based around what you've identified. So that's a congregational discernment model. And then the third is what I was trying to think, what do you call this? And I like made this up a few years ago. So today I've never given it a name. So today I'm calling it the congregational composition model. And this is really for small congregations that have 100 or fewer active members. And in this case, you sit down and you don't sit down. You ask the question, why did God bring this ragtag bunch of people together into this place, right? If God brings us together for a reason, if he's brought each person to this, our congregation, why did he bring you? Why did he bring you, me? What do we bring together? And that could inform us what it is God wants us to do. Does that make some sense? So again, there are fun ways to do this. You'll have a big piece of white paper or whatever you want to write it on. It's got to be like paper. And you have people write down what I'm really, really good at. What are your talents? What are your gifts? Write them down there. Then over here, you've got another one. And it's like, what do I really like to do? What is my experience? What is my experience? What does my education, have I learned educationally? What another one is, like who I like working with best, is it youth? Is it children? Is it adults? Is it senior adults? And then the fourth one is, what resources do I have? So, do I have in a rural congregation? Do I have tools? Tulip Christian Church is in the middle of nowhere. You go down a five miles down a 2-lane little road, literally surrounded by cornfields. It dead ends into a gravel road. That gravel road then goes down, and you go a mile or 2 miles on that, and here is Tulip Christian Church in the middle of trees. It used to be this teeny tiny little community. You can still see doorsteps on part of the church's property. But what do all of the people at Tulip Christian Church do? Farm. And they had a combine parked there one day. And it got me to thinking, like, what if you had an extra combine and you were able to help somebody with their field if their combine broke down, right? Or do you have an extra one like you can do stuff with? I don't get farming, so I'm a suburban city. But it was like, here are your resources, right? What you all bring. Maybe it's helping people with their fields in exchange for gleaning, so that you could glean corn or something and then help feed the people who don't have enough that year. Like, what do you bring? So anyways, you do that, and then you just sit down. You have a small group of people who sit down and begin to see, what are we seeing here that brings some possibilities. So you see how that one's kind of like from the inside out into the mission. So as far as I can see, there are these three key ways to develop your mission. The other one is in Cody. I was thinking about this one for you, and I think for Troy as well, that well, no, for you is where I was thinking this. So you know what y'all have been doing, like what people, their favorite ministries are. You can call that out as your vision. You just give language for it. So it's like, because if you still have your Lord's Acre dinner or
We
big,
didn't do it last year, and we're contemplating not doing it this year.
it's a
But
lot of work.
it is.
And a Lord's Acre, and correct me if I'm wrong in this, a Lord's Acre festival, a lot of rural congregations do them in Missouri. I'd never heard of it until I came to Missouri, rural Missouri. And what it's the whole idea of tithing, tithing a tenth of your property, or taking an acre of your property, and whatever you farm there, you bring that's what you give to others, or you sell that, and what you, or you know, what you sell off of that acre. Like if you grow corn and you have an acre of corn, whatever you sell that acre for is what your giving is to the church that year, or you know, as an extra gift. So churches have taken that and really run with it, and sometimes it's, you know, food from farms and whatnot, that the harvest parts that it's in the fall, they're in the fall, they bring that together. But gosh, the unity churches, the Jacksonville Cairo Unity that Cody is pastor at, they bring all kinds of stuff. They have an auction, and it's gotten bigger and bigger over the years. And so they make a good bit of money, and they take the money then, and a third stays at the church for mission. Is that right? And a third goes to others, and the third goes to a specific mission.
Yeah. Well, I don't know necessarily that it's still a third, but it goes, some of it helps out to help in the kitty, so to speak. So if we find ourselves not having a lot of money in the unit, or in the Unity account, we'll dip in from the Lord's Acre sale. But a lot of it is outreach, and it goes out to help families in need, not just in the congregation, but the community as a whole. And it's just, it's a big outreach fundraiser is what. So we've helped out people whose houses have burned down, and just stuff like that. People who need help with utility bills, and
It's amazing.
it really is.
So a vision could be something like, yours is the one that your mission is serving God and serving others, right?
Yeah.
Could be something like, using our harvest. I don't know, using the fruits of our labor, our gifts, to relieve needs of others, or something, meet the needs.
Yeah.
I've got to go get my cord and plug my computer in, and I forgot it's out there, and it's telling me plug me in or else. I'll come right back.
Anyone else having, oh, it's just you, problems with the website?
Not at the moment.
Huh? Well,
Not-
I don't know. I mean, I did have internet problems this week. I don't know if it was the heat or whatever. Frontier was having problems, but even right now, I went while we were still on here, and the website is very slow to load, like to load the different links to click on. But if I go to Ancestry or Facebook or somewhere else, my computer does fine. So that's why I was asking if anyone else was. Dr. Chris said she had some issues with it. It does eventually load, but also I noticed it used to show the other courses that were not closed. Now all of a sudden it's only showing this one course that I'm taking. Which is a little weird, but I just went there right now, Dr. Chris, and it was still loading very slow. And I went to Ancestry and Facebook, and those sites loaded very quickly on my computer. So it's not my computer. It is working, but it's very slow. Like you can see it's like kind of gray, not the color it's supposed to be. And then eventually the links load. And then every time I click, it's very slow. He
I'm on
said,
it all
Cody
right
said he's
now.
not having problems, but I have had issues and it doesn't seem to be my computer.
It won't let me send messages either.
Oh,
It's,
it won't? Well, then you're having issues too. It's not just me. I wasn't sure when you were telling me that if you were saying it was your computer.
mm-mm.
Or,
I
oh, so
don't
it
think
is
so.
the site that's having a little bit of issues. Okay.
And I'm having trouble getting my Google Calendar. I can't get it to, but that's a whole other story. Okay. So I guess that's a fourth way to develop vision is like the temporary part. So I did that for the area when I came here to the area and just said, okay, what are you saying? And I took what they told me they wanted me to do and I just formulated that together. And that's how we came up with the Reach and Serve plan. So I went into my board and I said, hey, this is what we're about. We're reaching and serving congregations. Isn't that we're going to keep reaching whether or not they want to reach, whether or not they want to receive that doesn't matter. We're going to come back and we're going to reach them the next year. And we're just going to stay at that until we can serve them so they can serve others. And then it kind of built from there, but it's how we brought it in and built the momentum. So think about that to help get them focused and see you can take it to where you want it to go, right? Okay.
Right.
Here's another thing. This is really, really huge. And I think you all know it. And remember, we're recording this. So this is for our course as, all our course mates as well. Missioning does not equal mission. A missioning church is not a missioning church just because it does mission. You start doing mission, like mission starts up at level 3. So a missioning church though asks, what do we need to do to change the lives of our neighbors, the people who live in our neighborhood? And I'm also going to give you another video to watch this week. I'm going to kind of lay out on a couple. I have 3 discussion forums, like reflection content on top of there's 4 total, but I'm going to take out 2 of them because I really want you to watch this video that was done by a man named Randy White, a pastor named Randy White. And it was given for the Bucky Graduate University, that's where Bill and I both did our doctorates. They have an alumni book conversation every year or every few months. And Randy spoke the other day, and his church, he's talking about how they are changing the economy of their community. So it's no longer what do our people in our community need, it's what do we need to change so they're no longer in need. Right? Does that make sense? So like in poor communities, when you live in a poor community, your groceries are going to cost you more than when you live in a larger community, believe it or not, because a smaller grocer, a self-owner of a small grocery is going to have to charge you more than would other vendors. It's like going to the farmer's market. It costs you more at the farmer's market than it does to go to Gerbs or Hy-Vee or whatever, which are our chains here in the Columbia area.
I love Hy-Vee. I lived in Illinois. Yeah,
right.
I miss them greatly. I know Hy-Vee.
Schnucks, all of those. Okay, so so how are you going to even that out in poor communities? Banks still aren't employee friendly. School systems often don't understand the culture of their children. CPS, Columbia Public Schools, where I am, they weren't very good at that 10, 14 years ago. They're doing a really great job right now. And it's, oh my gosh, it's so hard. But how do you change your community, right? How do you get in there and do that? That's what missioning churches are asking that. How are they involved, not just with the school and other churches, working with other churches mainly is what we do. But how are we, we go down and we're talking to the mayor and what are they called? City manager or county manager. And we're asking, what are you seeing? And what do we need to do? Oh, we need a crime plan. Like crime is out of control here in our neighborhood. What are we going to do to systemically change that? So I guess that's why I want to say missioning churches are looking at and working at a systemic, at the systemic level of changing things. Missioning phase 5 occurs where everything we do and say is based. It's actually dictated by our mission and vision statements. So you do nothing unless it's doing exactly what you're saying. And those mission and vision statements, you pointed out vague was the word you used, Cody, and I just picked up on it. You are so right. Yeah. So the mission and especially vision statements have to be measurable. How do you know that you're doing those? Okay. So let's see, what else was there? Yeah. I'm going to post Randy's video. You all really made me think as I was thinking about the missioning pieces, and it was Derek who has had to drop our course. So Derek has he's taking 2 courses or was, and one of them needed to go, and since he wasn't able to be with us the first 2 weeks of class. And at Phillips, we don't always remember this. If you miss 2 successive weeks of class, then you have to leave the class, and you can either take it as a dropout or an incomplete. I don't do incompletes in my class, honestly, because you can't catch up. I don't do the tests and things like that other professors do, and it's such a collegial model. But they arrange you can come back. No remorse. I've had students.
I'm grateful for that, by the way.
Pardon?
I said I'm grateful for that, by the way. I don't test very well.
Yeah.
Me either. I don't at all. It's my lowest grade in seminary was because they gave fill in the blank in multiple choice tests. I'm writing 20-page papers, and you want me to. Never mind. Okay, but I wrote this.
How can you on the ACT have math and verbal on a written it's not verbal. There's nothing verbal about it. If you talk to me, I would do better on the test.
Right. Yeah. I don't test well at all. Yeah, I don't test well, and yet. Yeah, I graduated with Phi Beta Kappa. I belong to Phi Beta Kappa. It's like, yeah, but I can't pass tests like that. Okay. I operate on my own plane, over my own planes. So anyways, I read this piece that I wrote, and again, I'm going to post it for you all to look at, but it really goes through what is a missioning church and the questions that we ask. And so it's easy to say, well, we're a missioning church, but I do it on looking at the Maslow's hierarchy. So, we don't merely ask, how does this fit our mission, God's reason for creating our congregation? We ask, what are we doing that's making God smile because we're engaged in the mission he sent us on? We don't merely ask, how does this join Jesus in what he's doing, what he wants to do in our committee? We ask, or in our community, we ask, what is Jesus calling us to do in our community? What does he specifically envision for specifically us? What does he need our congregation to do? We ask, what are we doing that's got Jesus saying at a church because we're doing what he needs us to do? How are we taking what we've envisioned to be what Jesus wants us to do and make it a reality? Right. So it's when we do that within, why did God put us here, and what are we supposed to be doing? How are we living that out in the here and the now? Does that make some sense? Anna, you're going to be ready to be an interim in the Christian Church Society. She's not laughing. I said, you're going to be ready to be an interim in the Christian Church Disciples of Christ.
Oh, me?
One of our small congregations by the
time we're done.
Catholic
that's working as an interim in the Disciples of Christ. I don't know how that would go.
Well, I've interviewed, no, I haven't, but I know they receive people from other denominations to teach some of their classes every now and again. Yeah.
Oh, one other thing. I know I'm going backwards, but I'm just going to say something. One other thing with Anna is that sometimes your supply ministers do become full-time or a seated minister, also because with us, like what I'm going through is a commissioning process. We have to have that in some capacity, whether you're the associate pastor or the seated pastor, that, you know, the main pastor,
See,
that you have to be working in a church full time, you know, in some capacity to keep that, to go through that commissioning process. So
it can be part-time too, but you have
Right.
do have to be called, permanent if you,
Good.
right, yeah,
you're in that church for a set amount of time.
good, yeah, that's important.
I was kind of hoping Tanya would be here, although I can add, I think, no matter what the questions are next week, I did get the answers for how my cousin's husband dealt with the Santa suit,
Oh, good.
which was not nearly as interesting as the one that burnt the suit, but I did have an answer. She wanted to know how he dealt with it when he got there.
That's awesome.
So I can tack that on to whatever the question is next
Oh,
week.
yeah, definitely. And I'll tell you what the question is next week. So I'm going to give you the scripture. It's Matthew 28. No, Matthew 18. 28 is the Great Commission. And I can't pull out the verses. See, this is why I don't do well on these like memory tests, you think. But my Bible, let's see, I'll show you my Bible. I can get to where it is, but you see, I've got so many markers in my Bible, and it's
You
all
said Matthew 18?
Matthew 18. It's Jesus's method for addressing conflict.
Ah.
Right? So that's the question's going to come out of that. So where is it? 18:15, I think it is.
18 what?
18 verse 15 through
24,
no, not that far. Through 20.
20.
Yeah.
Jesus teaches how to treat a believer who sins.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's 15 through 18, but 19 is a good one too, or 20 is a good one. 15. Yeah, 19 and 20 are nice tack-ons. 19, 20 say, whatever two of you agree about anything you ask for, it will be done for you by my Father in heaven. For where two or three come together in my name, there I am with them. So that's what that is.
Very famous verse.
Yes. Well, and I'll be interested when you read it within this context, because within that context, it's easy to say that, well, what we usually do is say, okay, when two of us are together praying, God is with us. And so God isn't with us when we're not praying. But when you look at that, think of it in terms of conflict, right? So when there's a disagreement, or if you believe that somebody has sinned against you, right? Which really sin means miss the mark.
Right.
We get all that mixed up too. So anyways, what it says is that when you get together, know that I am with you. And it harkens back really to Old Testament thinking with Jacob and Esau. Right. And so they had to make an agreement, or when there were other pacts, PACTs, that were made, it was like, the Lord be with you and keep over you and me. And in a way it's saying, God's watching, better not tick him off. Okay. That's what we're going to do. And so in a way, that's what that's saying, that I'm there, I'm with you, I can make it happen for you. So when two or three, because the whole piece is you go one-on-one, then you go take another person with you, and then you may have to bring before the church. I'm going to say very loudly, and I think it's in the vid lecture, as a pastor, you never, ever, ever go alone. You're going to go with the leader of your church, like the board chair or whoever that person is, because it's a church issue, not a personal issue. Right.
Right.
But we'll talk more about that next week. So that's the question will be there, and it will, it's how would you apply or have applied that to this situation? How could you have done that differently?
And I like the fact that you put the fact is that, yeah, sin is an archer's term.
Yeah, I love it. It is. It's hamarteo, I believe, and it means to miss the mark.
It missed the mark.
Yep. So, what David, Jonathan, remember that story out there? It was, how are you missing the mark? So,
There's
yeah.
a joke with us is that I used to hunt turkey by that's how I hunted turkey, but we joked all the time. I said, man, I sinned a lot today.
That's good. I love it.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. I'm going to tell my son that. He loves to bow hunt deer.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's a great start.
I've kept you too long. Thanks for hanging with me here. Yeah. So I just tossed a look out at you. Darren, I do have one more question for you. Do you know, and are you allowed to say, if you do, who your new pastor is?
Yeah, I just don't have it in my head right this moment.
That's okay.
I know who it is. I just can't. Yeah, no, there's no secret now that we have voted on and he has been officially accepted.
Okay, great.
Yeah. He's been in Bloomington, Iowa. And actually he also he teaches at AT Still, which used to be KCOM up in Kirksville. But yeah, even they renamed that. The DO Skill, they changed it from Kirksville College of Osteopathic Medicine to AT Still. They named it after him.
I did know that.
Yeah, that's where it all started.
Yeah, if you email me, I may know him. That's sounding familiar, but I may not. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, he's like 60, I believe. He's an older gentleman, not too old. I'm just saying.
Hello.
Yeah.
I'm 61.
That's why I said I'm 53.
I'm not older.
He's not too old. It just said he's older. But he's new. As far as the DOC, he was February last year was when he had his ordainment in the DOC. Even though he already had his doctorate, he has several degrees.
I think I know this. I know this guy.
Yeah.
I'll be curious to see. It'll be interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. You're off for a new ride.
I think I gotta get to my brisket anyway.
Okay. I'm gonna pray real quick.
Yep.
Yeah, I just thank you again for the times that we get to get together, for the ways that you hold electrical grids, power grids that allow for electricity for Anna to be here. Keep her safe and guard her lungs, filter out that smoke, and allow her to breathe deeply of the air, so she's not distracted from the work that she does and the work you've given her to do, the work that she delights in. Just for each of us, Lord, continue to keep us safe where we are, and to prepare us within that safety for the dangerous places that we might have to step out for you. Continue to build our courage, continue to build our those places of the things that become Lord, you know what I'm trying to say. I'm sorry.
Sanctuaries.
Yes. Okay, Father, just continue to build us in Jesus, build us in your likeness, because we do want to be like you. We don't want to be you, but except to be your hands, to be your feet, to be your tangible touch for others, so that we can inspire them and introduce them to you to them. So give us time for rest this weekend, at least in the rest of our day, and prepare us for what you have for us next week. Thank you. Amen.
Amen.
Yeah.
And the reading's going to stay the same, right? The reading was
what's in the syllabus is going to be which isn't the same thing we read last week, right?
No, I knew that.
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure nothing changed on that. So
nope.
All right.
Nope,
Cool. Thank you.
Thank
Hey,
you.
God bless all of you.
And you. Thank you. Bye.